Design thinking in action. This has been one of my most favorite topics after going through a wide range of expertise around different organizations and industries. And what are the common pet peeves that we usually see? And being an agilist myself, began observing mindsets and then building strategies. But before we step in, I just want to speak about a little bit about who I am. You already heard in just about, the part of the agility part and what I'm doing, but a little bit about who I am internally, right? Like who I am. So I have a family of four, my husband and my two kids. Kids are all trying to figure their lives out. So I'm allowing them to find their own adventures in life. But we are also an adventure family. So I love this little picture of mine here, which has been my most favorite learning trips, I would say, while my son and I went on a trek to the Himalayas and we were out on our own. It just brought us more attention to what we really need in life. So with that, as you heard, I also head the local communities globally for Women in Agile. I'm the program director. I'm very passionate about growing spaces where folks can find their voices and find ways of growing their life. So putting all my expertise and all my career paths together, I'm super excited. As you can see, a little app out there. For those who don't know me, I'm a yoga enthusiast sharing yoga within the town. And I recently launched my own app in um, growing wellness into your own space. So whenever you have the time, feel free to poke around and please share feedback because I'm all about feedback. All righty. Coming into why we are here today. So as I was checking in with Steve, what are the different audience that we're looking at? And looks like many of us are agile practitioners, project managers, leaders, software engineers, regardless where we are. We are also in this market and this day and time where we need to bring in agility. Agility, again, it's just not a buzzword in town. What does it really mean? But coming into the aspect of design thinking and systems thinking, here is where we are going to talk a little bit about adopting design thinking with a systems approach. And if we can find a blueprint that we can strategically use to implement AI within an organization or your ways of working, or maybe some of us are also small business owners, what are some lessons that we learn from our gigantic organizations out. And this is a beautiful way to enrich in our current world of AI. And it's great to see that the next month's topic is also talking about adoption of AI. So let's pause for a moment. And I know it's 4 p.m., so I love to bring in a little bit of, you know, interaction here. I'm sure all of us in some time, whether in our current or a past job, we have all been in this situation. And feel free to share in your chat when you were asked for ideas from your managers or your team leaders, or you have been a leader asking for ideas. How many times did those ideas go without action? So feel free to share it in the chat, Steve or Dave. Um, feel free to monitor. And how did that make you feel? You might have been sitting there super enthusiastic about, yay, we got this idea and this is how we are going to do. Now, here is why I'm going to explain why am I so passionate about this subject is all along as we have been working and empowering our teams to also begin to share ideas or bring those thinking hats on. Many times we have seen that we don't have our system supporting that idea. We don't have leadership support, or basically, maybe our organization structure doesn't really support that idea. So the idea remains as an idea. But what if we begin to apply the principles of design thinking and systems thinking, bring it all together, develop a strategy? Because wisely said in our wonderful book, AI Leadership, technology follows a strategy. So strategy comes before technology. So keeping that hat in mind, what if we bring this whole concepts together, develop a strategy so we begin to bridge that gap between creativity and implementation. And then we begin to see how we can test new ideas, whether it's going to be adopted or taken forward, but at least we have the option to test ideas. Usually, I love to think, and maybe we have heard all these words. We have heard agility, we have heard organizational agility, business agility, but I'm very fond of Dilbert. So take a moment and maybe a little cheering for ourselves. How many times have you seen this happen? Rapid execution versus strategic thinking. And I'm going to pause. And if anyone wants to unmute one or two people, please feel free to share maybe a unique example of this. And I know we all live in this world. Anyone to share?
Well, I would say that responding is not the same as rapid execution.
You got it. Yes.
Not the same thing.
Yes, not the same thing. So we are here trying to define what is organizational agility, right? It's not just moving with speed, but in fact, how are we responding to our internal and external changes? We have seen it. This is a book version. This is all out in Wikipedia, everywhere. But here we are today to actually embrace organizational agility. And that begins with us. That begins with our teams. That begins with our mindset. So, focusing on speed is good, but also living through the pandemic, we have also realized that adaptiveness with a true response of using a human centered approach is extremely important in turning an organizational agility to success. Now that we have maybe have gotten a little understanding about organizational agility, many of us have been involved in some form or fashion about design thinking. Share in the chat or unmute yourselves if you feel, or what is that one word that comes in your mind when you hear design thinking. And I said, this is a 4 p.m. time, and I know all of us don't want to really speak up, but anyone else? One word. Okay, awesome. So I do see the chat coming around, so that's great. Okay, framework. Okay, awesome. Good thinking. We are all somewhere around the same line. So design thinking, in fact, brings focuses on a user-centered innovation. As we have all seen in our product management, as we are all involved in developing products, quite often we keep using the word customer centric, user centered. And this is the whole reason why we are employing the design thinking approach, is understanding what is my journey from the beginning to the end. But what we have also seen is, as much as design thinking is employed, is adapted, and used in our software experience, we also become siloed with that approach. Now, for all you know, I might be tasked to draw a design about, what's your customer into the login screen. I'm developing an app and I need to figure out the login screen. I can get siloed into thinking what that login screen looks like without focusing on, if I were to put myself into the user's perspective, understanding the type of the user, what is the user trying to look for, and how do I apply this with a holistic approach, a complete approach. So to set the grounds for you all, we might have to switch our hats a little bit, put that systems thinking approach and step away from our siloed approach. I just want to bring in a simple example of our own health, which can be used as a perfect strategy for design thinking. We know our bodies are never the same day to day, season to season, phases of our life, minute by minute. So here is where health strategies are changing. And this is something that we all are also focusing in understanding. If we can only define the problem that I'm trying to solve. If I need to work out 30 minutes a day, what is the problem I'm trying to solve? We begin to apply the same strategies towards ourselves and practice an integrated approach, but a systems approach. This is something our bodies are the best places to actually apply design thinking, is how do we develop those strategies with a systems approach? So wanted to just start off with a little bit of an analogy there. And let's see, why is my screen not moving? Excellent. Okay, so there it moves. Now that we have understood what does design thinking systems approach building organizational agility, in this world of AI is really growing fast. And in fact, according to some of the historians, AI has always existed. So I'm not going to go to that factor. What do you think some of the barriers are in adopting AI in our current workplaces? And let's just focus wherever we are working. What's the few barriers that we are seeing as teams? Please share it in the chat if you can. Security, resistance to change, organization concern, and potential risk. Absolutely. Most importantly is the fear. We have a lot of fear where our jobs are going to be taken away. What if we do apply AI into our workflow, and what if? So we are all the time living in that world of what if. So coming to today's topic, as we begin to blend all these concepts together, what if you had a strategic blueprint that's actually going to help you implement AI into your teams or into your organization, into your ways of working? Adopting AI doesn't necessarily mean, oh, I need AI to just respond to my emails. I need AI for this. I need AI for that. And there are zillion types of AI models that's already out there. It was pretty interesting for me to see last year, between the month of September and December, just in our own little Columbus sector, there were almost 50 different type of AI models that were already released and into usage at organizations. It was in a span of 4 months that a lot of businesses had already implemented AI. But we also see that implementing AI into our organization structure can also feel very disconnected. So once again, I'm having some issues changing my screen. I am going to stop sharing and just share it again. Okay. So Can you folks see my screen or not yet?
Not currently shared.
Okay, so I need to share it again. And this is why we also have these. Okay. And going to expand this. And let's see. Okay. Are you folks seeing my screen with Inspire on it?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you, Steve. So, what if we had a strategic blueprint that we can adopt it as we begin to integrate these AI models within our organization? Our mindset is such that we like some kind of a framework or an acronym or something that's going to allow us to implement. And so we have a strategy to implement and not just say, take AI to solve a problem. You are integrating AI to enhance your workflows, yet with a human-centric approach. So I am going to take this along with a case study because it's a beautiful comparison as we use Amazon as our case study to understand how do we implement a framework that would optimize our ways of working or enhancing our delivery. So this is an acronym that I began to put together along with all my experiences I've had so far and began to apply it and understand across different industries as to how have they been successful in implementing AI across their different systems. I like to use Amazon because I know some of us have our own uses of Amazon, but regardless, Amazon has really made it so user driven that today we almost rely on Amazon for almost your everyday needs. So I started beginning to learn a little bit about Amazon and dove into a lot of case studies involving how have they effectively implement and look at those different categories. So number one, what does our framework that you see the acronym inspire kind of it almost gives you that inspiration to employ AI into your organization is using our AI powered decision models. If you look at what Amazon has done, they have used the AI driven inventory and demand forecasting models, taking into consideration their systems thinking of implementing into their entire ecosystem. So when I say ecosystem, it just doesn't stop with either their supply chain or their inventory, but they have made it in such a way that they have connected all of it together and they have used it as a demand forecasting model. And I almost take it back to many of us who are agile practitioners going back into the complete 1940s of history when Kanban came into existence. That was again based on a theory of let's meet the supply and demand. So for some of us who have been using Kanban models, it's a beautiful analogy that you begin to take into consideration, that you avoid waste and you begin to use those forecasting models. And here you have AI to help you with that. The second piece to remember when we implement AI is also just not about solving your problem, but you're also optimizing your networking that happens between your internal and external systems. When we talk about systems, we are talking about systems that is Maybe in our software field, we look at IT, we look at business. These are not two different entities, but they are all together. There is one system. And here is where I'm going to put my agile coach hat on for just a moment and talk about why do we feel agile is actually becoming, it's more of a word that people are shying away from using. And I always like to ask the question, did we fail agile or did agile fail us? So coming back into our AI adoption is also putting on that hat of making sure that we do optimize our internal and external collaboration. For example, how Amazon has optimized their supply chain and logistics network. They have driven extensive dashboards that allows them to give a good understanding of all the fulfillment centers as well as the delivery needs. And I have a perfect example of my own experience. During the pandemic, I had to make a trip to India, and my family is located in a pretty, not so big a city, but in a smaller region where I had to attend to my folks who were almost on that emergency needs. The only way that I could really get a couple of supplies, noticing that everything was shut down, was through Amazon. Amazon made it possible to reach that small little township that was located in the southern part of India, where even traveling there was such a challenge. So again, optimizing, and I got it all within 24 hours. I didn't have to wait for too long. So as we begin to adopt AI is also understanding our internal and external collaborations that we have within our systems. We don't have to be that supply chain, but we could be representing another organization. Third is scalability. Here is where many of us are driven by fear, where when we adopt AI to enable growth within our organization, that we drive with fear that it will replace humans. But scalability is adopting AI without proportional costs. Once again, the robotic warehouses that you see with Amazon has enhanced the work, which has not replaced your human decision-making processes. So you are still you are still being human-centered, whereas you have only enhanced the way you stock things, and they do extensive testing around a human workflow. It's amazing to see that Amazon has, I think, 750,000 different robots helping out in different warehouses, but there is testing done based on our human workflow. Once again, strategy first and then technology. Let's dive into predictive analytics, where many of us are fond of understanding, anticipating trends and market shifts. Along with Amazon, another huge giant is Zara, where Zara is again that the retail industry, where both of them have used predictive analysis to actually anticipate your shipping models. And it's a beautiful way where you begin to bring systems thinking, where you begin to understand geography, logistics, supply chain along to that specific region. So once again, if you have used Amazon across different parts of the world, you will begin to see how beautifully the market, how they shift and their models change according to the different geography locations. Innovation, and we can't skip innovation in our life. It's surprising to see how my daughter uses Alexa at her little apartment. Literally, Alexa does everything for her. And that's really weird because I'm still old-fashioned. I go and switch off the lights everywhere. But it's amazing, as much as we have our own pieces. I have my own old thinking of not using Alexa at home, but it's also a beautiful innovation to see that Alexa is just not a gadget. It has also improved efficiency in terms of, in terms of driving that change within your thinking. And most of all, it's that personalized approach. And for those folks who have been using and you want to understand a little bit more on design thinking, one of the pieces that Alexa uses is they test continuously on voice iterations. And they have improved Alexa to understand the different pronunciation and the accents that exist around the world. That's innovation. Resilience. We could not have learned resilience more than what we would have learned during our recent pandemic. And once again, I'm going to come back into the pandemic really taught us a lot of different ways where we were still at home and we were able to still bring in supplies, understanding that we are unable to step out of home. And all that was made possible by Amazon. I'm just using Amazon. I'm sure there have been a lot of different other areas that have also used AI and adapted accordingly. But again, once you start thinking about adopting AI into your organization, one of the pieces that we have to remember is how do we do that risk mitigation and how do we handle crisis? We want our workflows to still exist. We don't want to break our workflows. Last but not the least, why are we implementing AI? So the number one reason why we are implementing AI is we want to have that customer and that employee experience. Your interaction with Amazon is personalized from the time you take the app and you begin to browse. And lately, you also begin to notice that if there have been defects and if there have been bad reviews coming around, you begin to get that notification too. I'm not so much of an Amazon shopper, but I do see that it's enhancing that experience of a customer instead of scrolling to another screen where, okay, here is what I need to read. If there is already a return product, it also shows how many returns have already happened on a product. Now that has enhanced my usage as a customer on this app. So some of the key lessons that as we begin to put on this hat of adopting AI into our everyday needs or your business or your organization is understanding these different systems and understanding where do we have to actually adapt and use AI without having a fear or resistance. Rather, how do we effectively use it so that we as individuals have a scalable approach and a systems approach? We will be taking questions towards the end. So Steve, if I'm not able to see the chat, but once again, I do have my screen stalling here. If I am not able to share my screen again. Yep. Sorry, folks, I have to stop sharing and I have to share it again. Not sure what the problem is right now, but I have to do that again. Just give me one moment and we will work through this. As always, we know sometimes these things happen and we'll just have to work through it. Okay. Now that we have seen a framework and before I go on, can you folks see my screen?
We can.
Okay, great. So now that we have seen where we can how do we implement AI, let's take a look and see where are all those different areas that we can actually implement AI. And we will talk about it a little bit more towards the end. Our project management, there are times, and all of us have spent hours together writing those Gantt charts, those status reports, those huge documents. Maybe here is where we begin to optimize so that we can be more strategic drivers and thinkers while we have AI help us with those routine tasks. Enhance communication and collaboration. I do understand as a small business owner too, how important it is to have that communication across to your clients and have those responses more appropriately so we begin to ease out our tasks and focus on where we need to do it. Task automation, workflow optimization, we have all seen it in our software world. We have a lot of workflows automated, but we still have to have a lot of development and testing and not completely rely on AI to be doing those aspects. I do love the forecasting feature. Forecasting feature is absolutely beautiful. If folks have used some of the forecasting that even your individual apps and your websites allow, it shows how your trends are happening within the region. For example, if it's a wellness app, you know how many folks are looking for what kind of wellness, and you can get a beautiful study out of it. That's great. So we understood about a successful AI adoption, and I'm sure there are a lot of pet peeves, but I do want to take a couple of minutes to discuss about what happens when AI adoption is implemented, because AI, as much as we say, cannot be implemented everywhere. And I'm sure we are all through that we have all had that learning experience. So maybe some of you know, but again, I'm just addressing the entire group here. In 2013, IBM Watson was tasked with, again, AI breakthrough where they wanted to transform the care for their oncology patients, where AI would be helping clinicians give better cure, better advice, better patient management. So it was a really robust AI that they were working on. Needless to say, after years of working on that specific AI adoption, I wouldn't call it a failure because everything is a learning lesson. One of the pieces that they did notice was their technical limitations, and this is really important. Where do we apply AI and where do we not apply AI? First of all, our medical data is extremely complex. For our language models to understand and almost learn each applicable situation, was the data had to be presented in a certain way. So they almost did it from a chart to an AI. If now we have more of electronic medical record systems where there's already an integration happening, today the situation is different. But back then, there were a lot of limitations into number one, the technicality of it. Second, integration operational challenges. The very same reason it's resistant from our many medical professionals, because they started noticing that there was incorrect data that was coming out of AI. And again, it's not because AI model, it's again how the data was being fed into it. And last but not the least, it's again market expectations and reality. So would we want to spend, I think they spent like $69 billion or something like that. Would we really want to spend so much on at that time without having the right integration? Or would you rather have our expertise, our clinicians dealing with the patients and giving them tools to help them deal with it? So the idea was great. The idea was great. If we could optimize our care, if we could have a chatbot that was helping our patients, being out there, but also leading to complex situation was the reality. And that's where was it really, we needed to weigh there to see, understand what is our expectations from our clinicians and what is our expectations from our users, that is our patients. So I love to take this example because this is so applicable to understand into how do we adopt AI into our different pieces of our work, ways of working. We could have AI respond to our emails, but again, if you look at it, the content of the email, you are still the subject matter expert. Do you want AI to be just the one replying to emails, or do you want to have a personal touch? Because the personal touch, again, depends on the kind, the nature of work you're doing, the business that you're having, as well as whom are you reaching out to. So keeping into consideration, I do want to open up and I want to have some time to have some discussions because we want to have, this is, we are all still learning. We are learning into understanding how can we adopt AI. It's all in all, when we adopt AI, we have to think from a larger picture. And what is that picture? Does it give me the ability to change? Does it give me the ability to respond effectively? Because who are my users? Finally, who are my users? So regardless where we are going, we know who our users are. And if we take our design thinking experience, put it into our systems approach, I love to use the word inspire, use inspire and begin to check in with yourself and the teams each time you have been given the target or given the question, how can I elevate my agility here? So thank you all for giving me the time here to present what it means to have design thinking with a systems approach using a framework that's pretty simple. You use it, you talk to yourself, ask the right questions. Do I really need it? And if I don't need it, how can I exit out of it? Is it going to break my workflow? Is it going to give me collaboration? So all in all, I'm going to leave you all with a question. What can your organization learn from an AI-driven agility? I'm going to pause here and open up to questions or any feedback you have, and we can have open-ended questions.
Thank you so much, Vandana. For those who are attending, if you'd like to put any questions into the chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask Vandana a brief question about what she's presented. Well, Vandana, one question that I have is that, I mean, considering your final example with IBM Watson, what do you see more generally as some common pitfalls organizations face when they're trying to blend AI and integrate that with agility?
Absolutely. And I right now I'm currently dealing with also one kind of an issue is we begin to bring in AI to, I'm going to put my software hat here into testing models, right? So we have a lot of folks in asking, can we automate some tasks? Can we have those tasks automated? Let me just say our Jira automation. So Jira is a tool where we manage our work and things like that. But along with implementing automation, do you have enough testing to make sure that you as a human have examined that place and examined the automation if it's working right or not? So the most common pitfall that we have seen with AI adoption is using AI as almost you got to use AI as your thought partner, not as a walking stick. We begin to lean on AI to give us those decisions, yes, but you should have your human decision processes there to question what's coming out there. So that's one of the most common pitfall. The other piece of it that I've also seen is ethical considerations. When do you use AI? When you should not use AI? I'm going to take a personal example of mine, and hopefully, I don't know if there are any clinicians online, but I had gone for my physical appointment and I noticed, and no one asked me a question, is that okay if AI is listening to you? I spoke with my clinician, whatever, as usual, came out 2 days later, I got an AI driven after visit summary in my chart. Clearly, clearly, I know that was not overlooked, that was not examined because the situations that I explained was not there in my after visit summary. So here I am, ethically asking my clinician, was I asked the permission for an AI to listen to me while I was explaining my own personal challenges to you? You do that when you are in person. If you have an intern with you, you walk in and say, is that okay if this intern is going to be with you? So, taking that same example into consideration, did my clinician go back, check on my after visit summary, what I said? Did they listen to it, what I said versus what was released onto my chart? Now, I'm in a healthcare, I'm pretty well versed in healthcare, so I can read to it, but many of us are not. And we are going to take it literally. It was just like simple things that I would have seen in Google. So here is where the common pitfalls is don't lose your human touch. It's okay if it optimizes your workflow, but be the subject matter expert to go back and look into it. So if organizations are thinking of replacing a human person with an AI, you need that another brain to have that decision-making process. So this is exactly where we begin to say scaling, not replacing, scaling without any removal of that human centric decision process, because you still need humans to be there.
So, I mean, considering that comment, and at the end of your talk, you also use the example of, would you want an AI just replying to all of your email? So, given those two examples, where do you think the balance is, or how do you think companies can balance this automation and this need to be innovative and productive and leveraging these technologies balanced with human-centered decision making?
Yep, great question. Because I have a perfect example as we were brainstorming an issue yesterday at work. One of the pet peeves that was received by the business processes is this specific division were not responding on time. So you placed a request, it was a simple process. You placed a request and there was no response coming back. So maybe here is your automation. Your response goes up, yay, I received your request. Wait until blah, 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 whatever, 2 or 3 days until this request is done. But then your follow-up request will have more of a human model. I know as a small business owner, I get a lot of requests online. Now, I don't have time to track my emails. But I don't want the client who has reached out to me to feel ignored, to say no one has responded. So I have a structured email that goes as a reply to say that, thank you for reaching out, making it a little bit more human centric. You don't want that AI language to be there because I don't want machines talking to me. I am in that industry of wellness, so I look forward to that connection. But at least I have acknowledged the response. I have acknowledged the client to say, I have received your response. Expect a call from me soon. So then now here is where I begin to take the next step. So as we begin to understand our organizations is coming back into the E, the engagement, the collaboration piece of it, the last part of inspire E is understanding that we don't lose that human touch and make sure that our workflows are appropriately used. So I'm using AI, but I'm using AI to an extent that it'll enhance my workflow, but I'm not losing my human touch, if it helps.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's a useful perspective. Is there anyone else, any of the other participants who have questions for Vandana? You can either unmute or you can add them to the chat. To Dave Van Epps, I'm not sure, I wasn't able to closely monitor the whole chat. Did you see anything else in the chat that I wasn't aware of?
I did not see any other questions pop up.
Okay, excellent. Well, I guess the final thing that I would be wondering about, Vandana, is, as you see organizations pushing more and more toward agility, toward being more responsive, where do you think is that, if you were to call out one thing that adds the most value in supporting that, what are your thoughts as to what that might be?
If I may understand the question, is what are my thoughts in adopting AI in your organization?
Where AI would add the most value in supporting organizations that are striving for agility.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Again, I'm not in supply chain, so I really can't speak for that. I can speak for, I'm going to speak for the software workflow, right? So where can we maybe enhance our optimize our time management, right? We are all tasked with a lot of work. We are all tasked with a lot of also presentations. So if you ask me as a routine, if we are able to automate a routine task, a mundane task, not too long ago, I still remember as I was coaching a Scrum Master, I noticed that the Scrum Master was literally using up almost 8 to 12 hours in a week trying to build status reports only to make the leader happy. Is it worthwhile our time? Is it worthwhile to spend 8 to 12 hours not really focusing on what we are doing as a value of delivery? So what if we automate those tasks? We automate those presentations. I love the idea that I don't have to spend 8 hours in putting a presentation together. We have enough AI tools because your presentation is a method that we are sharing virtually, making sure that we're sharing the information. Yes, but can I rely on AI to be the only source of truth? No. AI is only going to be a guide optimizing my workflow and also making sure that our routine tasks, so maybe your presentations, maybe your routine tasks, maybe look at your Jira tool and see what are those different automations that's available right now. There are wonderful automations available in our Jira module right now, and maybe that's where you implement an automation there and
I
reduce
was
your
going to say, I
time.
love that example, Vandana, because I'm sure that many of the people who are participating in listening to your presentation today can identify with that notion of, our customers or stakeholders are requiring certain deliverables, and those are routine things, and they seem not to add proportional value, but yet they're required. And so what do you do about that? So
Mhm.
automating those routine things, I think that's, certainly not the only example, but I think it's probably an example that will resonate with a lot of the attendees.
Yep, absolutely. Very applicable. So I can speak for some of those that exist in our software world. And we also use our collaborative brainstorming sessions. We use a lot of our whiteboarding tools that's available with AI implementation. I don't have to sit and draw a large number of flowcharts, but I can use some templates to allow me to go through that in a faster way. So we are optimizing, even if you're a facilitator of a session, here is where you begin to notice your individual places where you use your task, use the AI to enhance your individual areas of workflow. That's it. Simple.